You might say that I've spent my life trying to understand the forces that we must overcome if we're to be able to make a world the way we would want it to be. The focus of most of that has been the nature of the anarchic system of civilized societies that inevitably emerge with civilization and that generated a selective process because anarchy means a war of all against all. And that's how I embarked on my life's work, and I continue to focus a lot on that. But after that book on that problem came out in 1984, and then another about healing the wounds that drive us to make war, I turned to a different source of brokenness in the human world, having to do with the workings of the market system, the market economy, which is sort of analogous to the war of all against all. Is a system which, in its pure form, laissez-faire economics, there is no regulation, and there are these various entities that are competing. That's true in both those worlds. So anyway, in 1993, I came out with a book called The Illusion of Choice: How the Market Economy Shapes Our Destiny. And it's still in print from SUNY Press, State University of New York. It was, the Cold War was over. The nations of Eastern Europe were emerging out from under communism. And I wanted to get out to the world as best I could the proposition that one should not trust the market. It's fine to use the market, but it needs to be corrected because it has major blind spots. There's a logic to the system itself, just like the anarchy of civilized societies. But the anarchy of laissez-faire economics selects for things and selects against things that are not the ones that necessarily are ideal for meeting human needs and making a good human world. The problem of power in the market economy, it's not a really good name, but it's a more benign system than the anarchy of intersocietal system, but some of the same problems exist. It's more benign to such an extent that there is a huge amount of truth to what Adam Smith famously said in The Wealth of Nations, when he said that everybody, this is paraphrasing until I get to the invisible hand, that's the phrase we're going toward, that we don't appeal to the butcher and the baker on their for their altruism, but essentially everybody's out for themselves. By interacting in the market, everybody acting according to self-interest, they are led as if by an invisible hand to some kind of an optimal outcome. That's the market ideology. And in our time, the most prominent exponent of that, I think, was Milton Friedman, where he called his book Free to Choose. Years later, I answered with my title, The Illusion of Choice, because the market system is a marvelous tool, but it has its own inherent tendencies that need to be corrected. It's a marvelous tool in ways that I imbibed as a kid at my father's knee. He was a professor of economics, and he could show, as I got later in college, with the introductory economics course, etc. Um, how the buyers and sellers of all kinds of things are led by the information given by the market to make a whole series of choices to meet their needs, maximize their profits, maximize their utility, and supply and demand meet at an optimal kind of a point, and we get equilibria and Phillips curves. Okay, it's beautiful stuff, and there's a lot of truth to it, which is why what the market has created around us is really pretty marvelous in a lot of ways about meeting human needs. I mean, you go on to Amazon, at our fingertips, we've got a huge range of choices to meet a huge range of needs and desires. And okay, yeah, there is a lot of truth to it. The problem is that there's important ways in which it's not true. The market is registering information that we bring into the system as buyers and sellers, meaning as social atoms. It's not how we're connected with each other. When I go to the supermarket, I'm acting for me. And when they open that supermarket, they're acting for them. This is the invisible hand is taking all these social atoms, seeking to maximize what they want, and it giving information where the price gets set that shows the degree there in which something has a demand, which people are willing to supply to meet that demand, et cetera, et cetera. But that's just one aspect of what the human world is. The human world isn't just about what we are separately. There are all kinds of wholes that we're part of, and they don't register. Just to name one, if we're burning a fossil fuel, we're operating by the information that was provided through the whole market system to the pump, which tells us what the costs were of getting that product to that point. And let's say it's $3 a gallon, and we buy cars in response to that price. If it was $30 a gallon, we would take that information into account and buy different kinds of cars. But we take the information that we got, which is just about what the social atoms involved in the process. But it turns out that there are other costs, because we're not just social atoms. We're part of a biosphere, and is intimately connected with an atmosphere, and the burning of fossil fuels transforms the atmosphere in ways that can be catastrophic. I mean, the costs that we're already paying, much larger costs that it seems inevitable that we and our children and grandchildren will be paying, didn't register in that system at all. There's all kinds of ways in which the market does some things marvelously well, because it attends such a great mechanism to certain kinds of calculations. But there are a lot of important things that are left out. The wholeness of things is really what we need to be paying attention to, because we're engaged as a civilized species in a war between forces of wholeness and forces of brokenness. And we can't afford to have forces of brokenness become strong. Wholeness is, it's the order in which life is able to perpetuate itself. And civilization departed from that. It was no longer a part of the system in which the lion and the zebra and the grass worked together to create a perpetual motion machine. We extricated ourselves from the natural order and then fell into all kinds of disorder. But similarly, the market system has all these elements interacting together in a way that ignores the wholeness of things. Natural selection creates one kind of wholeness. The human world requires another kind of wholeness to be healthy, so that we attend to all the various dimensions of what goodness is in the human world with equal attention and in a proper balance. We have a market system that allows us to meet our needs superbly as independent actors, as consumers. But where do you go to buy a world in which things are operating in a whole way, in which the allocation of resources is truly one that is the ideal one? You can't buy in the yellow pages, as to date myself, you can't find in the yellow pages things that have to do with how to buy a healthy society. And so there is a need for the market system to be corrected by the decisions that we make as a whole, which is what government is in a democracy is supposed to be about. Regulation is required because a lack of regulation leads to societies to develop in predictable ways that are suboptimal. What I argue in The Illusion of Choice is that if a society allows a laissez-faire economy to function without being corrected, it is entirely predictable what direction things will go. And it's not optimal. And one of the places where it has shown up to be actually kind of disastrous, in which the whole story of humankind is suffering a serious wound, is that the market evolution, because of its inherent dynamic, is that it will create industries willing to kill for money. You can Google that or look on my website, A Better Human Story, to see some stuff I've written about how that happens. But one thing that we know is that, or can know, I mean, I've studied it, and so I feel like I do know, that wherever an industry has been in a position where they learn while they become rich and powerful by producing a certain kind of product, that product is actually killing people. They have made the choice to deceive people about what they knew and to keep killing people because that was good for their bottom line. And the three most spectacular examples of that are, first of all, the asbestos companies, the industry as a whole. I have a good friend who's the most knowledgeable person in the world about what they knew and when they knew it and how they tried to obscure it. They killed people. And there have been court cases all around the world for decades. But when they saw that asbestos was killing their workers and the communities that those workers lived in, they didn't warn people. On the contrary, they kept people from the knowledge that could have saved their lives. And then we've got tobacco. The market system can be shown to have a dynamic that would produce what happened with the tobacco industry, the same thing. I mean, here's an industry that, emerged from colonial times. George Washington grew tobacco on Mount Vernon. The whole Virginia patrician culture had a fond place for growing tobacco. I think, Sir Walter Raleigh in a can. Virginia has been connected with. Here I live in Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, um, and other states as well. Well, we know very well what the tobacco industry did when they discovered, at least by the somewhat early 60s, that their product was killing people. They created these institutes and had these guys in white coats and these scientific whores go out and try to create doubt. We don't know, no adverse. I mean, they were known as coffin nails even before all the science was in. But anyhow, they wanted to sow doubt so that people would keep smoking or start smoking who might otherwise, if they knew the truth, quit or never start. That's what that movie, The Insider, is about. That's what happened in the 1990s when they were finally found to have been engaged in such a propaganda campaign, deceiving people, killing them for money. And then the third and most serious of all. I asked my friend, has there ever been an industry that has been in that position that wasn't willing to kill for money? And he told me he can't think, he doesn't know of any, and I think he would know. And if I also posit, by the way, based on my own sense of my fellow human beings, that even though it seems that every industry put in that position that emerges out of that system will make the choice to kill for money. I believe, and I don't have evidence for this, I don't believe that's representative of what human beings would do as individuals. I think that the proportion of people who'd be willing to kill for money in such ways is below 20%. Maybe below 10%. I don't know. I've never felt fully and clear about just how much brokenness there is in the world. I just don't have that sense, but every industry does. This is one of the ways in which humankind needs to be alert to the systemic forces that need to be brought under control. Not only do we need a market economy to be corrected by, like, say, taxes that tell us more about the real costs of our burning these fossil fuels, but Clinton couldn't even get, a 5-cent carbon tax per gallon. We need to set up our politics also so that an industry like the fossil fuel industry isn't able to buy a political party. That's another form of brokenness, the way money and power can interact in a democratic society. It should never have been possible for a major American political party to become essentially an instrument of an industry that was willing to sell out our grandchildren for their own short-term profits. I mean, how much more broken can you get than that? So there are important systemic forces besides the war of all against all in that system, in which it's still the case that a fascist tyrant in Moscow can upset the peace of a continent and invade a society that has the right to be left alone. It's not just that system that needs to be brought under control. We've got a lot of systems that need to be brought under control. We need a system where the relationship between political power that can provide the necessary regulation and the money system, the corporate. By the way, in my book, The Illusion of Choice, I don't talk about market power. I talk about a perfectly functioning system, according to Adam Smith and Milton Friedman and like pure competition. Nobody's got market power. That's part of the beauty of why it's the invisible hand. No monopolies, no monopsonies, just, all these grain farmers and all these competing, et cetera. But it's a fiction. Particularly in today's America. But even if you assume perfect competition, what I try to demonstrate in that book is all the ways that the inherent dynamic of the system itself will drive the society to develop in ways that are quite suboptimal. And therefore, it is important to find the proper balance between regulating the market system, using it as a tool to do what it does best, but making sure that its blind spots are covered. Okay, I guess that's about all. Thanks for listening.